I'll see you in a week. Well, old Posiedon got a new tranny, and I have a clutch. Well, it's been about a week and a half, roughly, and that's the old clutch from Posiedon. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that in the back here. Go ahead and close this puppy up. Get in, and if you guys notice, something's a little different. So I got a new tranny. It's the Legacy Spec B transmission. They said it was in really good shape, and I have myself a 6-speed transmission now. So this is a little different for me, but brand new clutch, and this is my first startup in like a week and a half. New starter, assembly, everything. So this is crazy, man. I've been dreaming of getting a 6-speed swap for so long now. Feels a little wobbly. Definitely need to get some new bushings for it, but I have third again, so that's awesome. But hell yeah. First drive in the 6-speed swap, and it feels so surreal, you know, like I've been dreaming about getting this car with a built motor, getting it 6-speed swapped, like since the day I first got it. Like after I found out, you know, all the possibilities that you could do with these cars, and just, it's so crazy to think that like I have this now. Like it's mine. You know, if someone 3 years ago would have told me when I got this car that it would have a built motor, it would have a, you know, a 6-speed swap transmission, like I would have told you, that's cool, that's a great dream to have, but like it's never gonna happen. And then here I am with a freaking 6-speed, bro. Like, oh man, I miss this car so much. First drive though, I mean, it feels very normal. Everything feels fine. It's so crazy to think how short my gear ratios are though. Like I'm going 50 and I'm at 3,000 RPM, like, and then fifth is like it barely dropped any. That's like crazy, dude. It barely dropped any down to like maybe 500 RPM, but like it is so crazy to think that I got a 6-speed, man. Like it's a Legacy Spec B transmission, just as strong as the STIs, and so it also has, I also went ahead and put a brand new stage 2 ACT clutch in it with a lightweight flywheel. So this car is ready for 400 horsepower, guys. All right, well, like I said before, super stoked to have the fucking 6-speed now. Give you guys a little rundown on kind of why I chose the Legacy Trans instead of going full STI swap. And I think the most obvious reason is there's less parts to it. One of the biggest things was that I could keep my 5x100 bolt pattern, and that was kind of a big deal because I didn't want to have to buy the new axles. I didn't want to have to buy the brakes, you know, or I have to find them. Just kind of a basic thing. It is, like I mentioned earlier, it's just as strong as the 6-speed. I mean, these transmissions have been known to hold like up to 600 horsepower. So me shooting for 400, this was just an ideal. Like, this is just the ideal way to do it for me. The nice thing about it, it still has the R180 rear diff, which is super cool because the R180 rear diff is the same differential that comes in the 07 to 18 STIs. I think the older Legacies had the R160, but it wasn't as good of a rear diff. I know the 06 STI, it was a little different because the rear in my car with the Spec B trans is a Torsen rear diff. LSD versus, I think the 06 STIs had like a clutch type rear LSD. But I mean, there's different kinds. Everyone's got a preference on which is better, what's not, you know, which to go for, what to upgrade to. But everyone's got an opinion on it. But every LSD is great in their own kind of way. So another few reasons why I ended up going to Legacy Trans was it was a little bit cheaper, and you kind of got some of the same benefits as you do with the STI Trans. On the contrary to that, the Legacy Trans does not have the DCCD controller, so I can't really like torque split front to rear. But going from the WRX transmission and the rear diff and the center diff.
Wait a minute.
Going from the WRX transmission and center diff to the Legacy Trans and center diff, I actually now have a 50-50 split front to rear versus I think in the normal WRX 5-speed it was a 60-40, 60 front, 40 rear. But I still get to keep my viscous center diff, which is actually super cool. And I did a little bit of reading into the viscous center diff, sorry. Actually, like, you can read into it if you're really that interested, but the way that I understand it is that this liquid in the center diff is very, very temperamental. So it reads temperature and it reacts in the sense of sending power to the front and rear wheels, or in my case now, going around turns, it'll actually send power to the inside and outside tires to help with cornering, which I think is super cool. And I know one of my friends had an Evo, and he said his Evo did that, where it power split to the inner and outside wheels around a corner. So I thought that was really cool reading into it, that now my transmission and my drivetrain does that. The nice thing about it too was with the Legacy transmission, you actually can keep your 3.9 rear diff gear ratios. So you don't, I know some of the STIs had a 3.4, but the Spec B actually keeps the 3.9. So the gear ratios are pretty similar to the 05, or not the 05, but the 5-speed that was already in it. I did a little bit of testing with my buddy Ian's hatch, which you guys have already seen on the channel. I was going about 70, 75 miles an hour in 6th gear, and I was right around 3,000 RPM, and I was just on the highway. But in his 5-speed, when I drove his car, the 5-speed, I was at about 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour, and it was right at like 3,000. So they're almost identical on gear ratios, so that's pretty cool. Get to keep about roughly the same gas mileage. Like right now I'm sitting at 21.3. So it really, I thought it was gonna be like a pretty big hinder to my gas mileage, but it really isn't. I know with the center diff controls, a lot of people, looking up on forums and stuff, people say, fuck the Legacy Trans, get the STI Trans, spend the extra money, because they say that the center diff tends to go out. And in reality to that, in retrospect, it's not really that the center diff is weak or the weak point or faulty. It's usually caused by other things going on in the transmission, or with the tires typically being different sizes or different treads. With the new Legacy Spec B trans, I have a Torsen limited slip rear diff, but I still have an open front diff. But when I had the WRX trans in it, the 5-speed, the front and rear diff are completely open, like completely. Like no LS, it's got a viscous rear diff, but it's not like an actual rear diff at all. So it's like your, what's the word? It's like your great value LSD that they were like, yeah, let's put this in a car, it'll be fine. But in reality, it's pretty crappy. But now having that new LSD in the rear, the car definitely acts a lot different. I noticed that, like I said, when I went back roading a few times. But the gear, so I know I mentioned earlier that the gears themselves are stronger. This transmission can handle like 600 horsepower. The gear ratio alone is way better for like acceleration purposes. Like you can downshift from 6th to 4th and get on it, and it feels so much better than it did in the 5-speed. Like instead of having to go 5th to 4th to 3rd, because the gear ratios are so much longer, it just, the 6 speeds are sloppy. I mean, they're very, very sloppy transmissions. And then now having a 6-speed, I realized what I was missing out on. I will mention that in earlier models, such as the JDM 05 STI, it actually came with a SureTrack LSD in the rear, or yeah, limited slip differential in the rear, but that was in the JDMs. But in the United States, we got the plated rear diff, which is interesting. You can do more research on it, obviously, if you have that car, but kind of give you an idea of what you have or what you're working with. And hopefully to you guys out there that want to do a WRX 6-speed swap, I would just recommend the Legacy trans, because there's a lot less parts that you got to deal with. But I finished all break-in miles on the new trans and everything of that sorts. But I figured I would let you guys know on what was going on with the trans, because I know I had mentioned it in a few previous videos. I did have the car revised to fit the new transmission that is in it. I know the ECU needs to be recalibrated, but that's not a big deal. One thing with the Legacy Spec B trans is that you can actually add the DCCD controller into it. If you guys are interested, I know Smedia, I'll go ahead and link him probably over here. I know he does have a couple videos on it. I personally looked into it, and I was kind of like, yeah, no, screw that. I don't really feel like tearing the whole dash apart and having to wire something in and then have your little controller down here. I personally didn't see that. That was very beneficial for me as a daily driver. But if you guys want to be able to control where the, different torque is split, and, if you take your car off-roading, it'll give you that option to have different setups and whatnot. It's really just a personal preference thing. The controller alone, I think, was like 400 and something bucks. It's really not expensive. I think just the biggest thing is going to be like, it's most time consuming to wire it all in and to make sure it works, because you got to get it working with the center diff and all that fun stuff. Like I said, personally for me, it just was not ideal, and I didn't see that it was worth it, just because, like I said, this is my daily driver. But this is the Legacy Spec B GT trans in my I almost said 08 to 14 WRX, but it says a 11 to 14 WRX swap. And I'll give you guys a few pulls to show you the difference in gear ratios. So this is going to be a 4th gear pull at 55 miles an hour. And I'll show you guys how fast these gear ratios are once I get around this turn. it's actually really cool. So like you guys saw there, shifting from 4th to 5th, it's such a much shorter gear ratio that it just constantly keeps you in your power band, and I love it. The car feels great. Super happy with it all. And so like I said, it is time to make more power on this car. In regards to everything, like I said, shout out to ECOTECH, shout out to the boys over there. They really hooking it up, got me taken care of. Go check out that video of Smedia if you are interested in doing the DCCD controller. But for the biggest bang for your buck and a more reliable option than a 5-speed, I would 100% recommend doing the Legacy Spec B Trans. It's really finally a good feeling knowing that I have a solid chassis again, no leaks, no missing gears, and my motor's not blown. So anyway guys, thank you for sticking around. I hope this was informative for you guys. I hope you guys learned something, and I hope I persuaded, or at least I guess gave you knowledge of what to swap into your next car or your current car. But anyway guys, if you did like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe. You guys already know the deal. But without all that being said, like I said, hope you guys learned something. But anyway, y'all, stay spooling, my friends. Peace out.